Moff Gideon is one of the most intriguing and mysterious characters introduced in The Mandalorian. Throughout the first 2 seasons of the show, we've been given a few hints about his past, his intentions and allegiances, and yet we're still left with so many unanswered questions. Well, in this video, my dear friends, we'll discuss what we know so far, and this will lead us to an exploration of one specific aspect of Gideon that is not spoken about enough, and what this could tell us about his mysterious past. So without much further ado, and without any more jibber jabber, let's dive straight into it. Before the Empire fell, Moff Gideon was an officer in the ISB, the Imperial Security Bureau, which was the Empire's intelligence agency and secret service, and while there, Gideon picked up all of the tricks of his trade. It's likely one of the reasons he was so terrified when Luke Skywalker showed up and started taking out his Dark Troopers, and at that point, Gideon would have been well aware of Luke Skywalker and all rebel activity given his former position. Also the fact that at this point, Luke Skywalker was a living legend. Well, this and the theory that Moff Gideon possibly encountered the Jedi in the past. But we'll come back to this thought later. Gideon was clearly a valuable asset to the Empire, which would have helped him rise in the ranks of the Imperial Army, where he gained the title of Moff. Moffs essentially acted as sector governors, second only to Grand Moffs. Now Gideon clearly showed a lot of promise, rising through the ranks really quickly, and wielding an enormous amount of power and influence in the Imperial Army. He was a big deal before the collapse of the Empire. Now after the Empire's fall, he kept a low profile, even faking his own death and spreading rumours about it. Except of course, he hadn't. He'd only gone underground, careful as always. With focus off him, prior to The Mandalorian Season 1, Moff Gideon was able to concoct his plan and put it into motion without the gaze of the New Republic on him. Needless to say, Gideon is a ruthless character, the embodiment of what the Empire wanted, except of course, the fact that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have deliberately made it ambiguous what his true intentions are. Because even though he and the rest of the Imperial Remnant are trying to rebuild the Empire and help in Palpatine's contingency plan involving cloning that will eventually also create Snoke, Moff Gideon has an undeniable selfish side, one that we cannot ignore. His plan might be more expansive and complex than we think. It might not be just to use Grogu's blood for the cloning project, but also for himself. Gideon wants personal power, and this brings me on to the main point of the video. I have a theory that Moff Gideon has a personal connection to the Force. Giancarlo Esposito even teased the possibility of Force sensitivity for his character. So what if the cloning projects involving Grogu's blood and high midichlorian count are not just to bring the Emperor back, but also to make himself more powerful? I came across a really interesting theory that states that once upon a time, Gideon might have been a Jedi youngling who was rejected because even though he had training to use his powers, he was deemed unsuitable due to a low midichlorian count and low Force sensitivity. Dejected, a young Gideon disappeared for a while, but after the fall of the Republic, he joined the Empire. This is where he gained his sycophantic obsession with Darth Vader's power and status, something Giancarlo Esposito also teased inspired the character, and continued personal interest in the Force. Who knows, at some stage he may even had connections to the Inquisitors. Working for the ISB furthered Gideon's strategic abilities, and so when the Empire fell, Gideon saw this as a chance to put his skills to a higher purpose. And combined with his obsession with Force power, he sought to increase his own midichlorian count through transfusion, if only he could find the right donor, which of course he did. Essentially, one of his biggest aims is to reclaim his ability to use the Force and increasing his power at the same time as furthering Palpatine's contingency plan. And we also have to consider that Gideon is not working alone, and there are likely other powerful remnants out there, ones that he works for or under. Now, one theory I've seen going round that I do not personally buy is that Thrawn is connected to Gideon. I think they're completely separate, because Thrawn's priority to protect the Chiss Ascendancy is separate from the goal of the Imperial Remnant, and the only reason that Thrawn ever joined the Empire in the first place all those years ago was to see if he could use them in order to protect the Chiss. But going back to Gideon and the Imperial Remnant, lurking in the shadows, there could be a bigger threat. And with Gideon likely escaping New Republic prison in Season 3, he will be back very soon, and his intentions might be made clearer. What do you guys think of this theory? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, my dear friends, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and a massive welcome if you are, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm Star Wars Meg, may the Force be with you, always.